This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to talk about something today that is really going to make you think for a moment. And we've identified before, when we've gotten together with her numerous times, that we've all been through things in our childhood, and those things have pretty much held us back in terms of leading the lives that we really feel we should deserve, or the direction we should go in as adults. It's called a trauma. These are things that happen in childhood, most of them. Where would we be if that didn't happen? Who would we be if that didn't happen? We're going to dig into that today. It's going to make you think for a sec. Once we identify where we have been and where we are now and where we could have been and where we can be. She is a transformational speaker, pastoral counselor, intuitive guide, interfaith minister. She's also a Reiki therapist and so much more. Great to have her back here, professional leader. She is Chris Clearday on the program again. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
Intrigued about this because it's making me this is I believe your superpower. You make us think. And that question, who would we be if we didn't go through that stuff we went through in our childhood? I gotta be honest, and we'll get to that. But right away, I already see what I would have been if I wasn't held back from these, call them the wounds, the trauma, and all of that. We usually recap. Shall we do that today?
Let's do it. Okay, so today's episode 23. I'm hoping that these episodes are being consumed in order so they make the most sense. In the last episode, we explored the importance of speaking the truth with love and grace, not just to other people, but also to yourself. You know, there's a real emphasis on what we say to ourselves because that matters. Okay, so now broadly, in this whole podcast, our goal has been to end the human conditioning of suffering. Like, we suffer. Life is hard. I'm not trying to minimize it. It's really hard. But we want to take back control over the things that we can. Much is out of our control, much is in our control. So we've spent a lot of time throughout the podcast really focusing on and uncovering the childhood wounds that wreaked havoc on our lives, not just in our childhood, but followed us into our adulthood. So today we're going to explore how to recreate your life and yourself by answering this one impactful question: who are you if you aren't your wounds? And I think that is just the greatest question to ask.
Now, we take that personally, these wounds, these things that we dealt with, and we'll get to that in a second. It's not ours, is it?
No, it's not meant to be ours. So, you know, when you were young, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, somebody said or did something to you that hurt so much or affected you so much, it literally changed who you were. It changed what you believed about yourself. It changed what you believed about other significant people in your life. And it altered who you were. It altered how you see the world. Now, I call this a microtrauma, and just let me be clear. I call it that because it could have been something considered to be very small, harmless, innocuous by other people, maybe who were even there in the room and didn't even notice, but you took it personally. You internalized the wound. Then you formed micro triggers, which are what come out of micro traumas. Now, we've all got micro triggers around things like feeling less than or inadequate or not good enough, right? But we have thousands, and we carried them throughout our entire lives. So this trauma, you know, it changed your entire narrative, how you see yourself, how you see the world. It changed your inlook. It changed your outlook.
I'm going to ask you a personal question I've never asked, and I know we're going to pivot here, but I feel at the moment I need to ask it because I'm thinking it myself.
Bring it on.
these things, these micro traumas. And if you can identify the people who were responsible, maybe it was that person on the playground that bullied you, maybe it was whatever it might be. Have you found yourself angry at those people? Well, it could have been another kid, but do you find yourself, when you think back, just like, damn it, that ruined my life in a lot of ways.
Well, I don't personally look back at it so much like that, but I will say that that's part of your natural healing process. I mean, it would be
Hmm,
really reasonable for you to be angry about something that you needed to heal. I mean, anger is not inherently bad. Sometimes you have to move through the anger and the sadness. Sometimes people think they're angry when really that's just repressed sadness, and
sure.
other times people think they're sad and it's actually repressed anger.
And when I say anger, maybe that's not the best description. It's more of I call it really, really. Like, I had to deal
Yeah,
with that, and now I'm dealing with this now.
I think it's normal to go through that because it's really hard to deal with some of these things, and
Hmm,
sometimes they come out of the blue. You don't see them coming, and they hurt
yep.
legitimately.
So let's continue our path of recreation.
Okay, so here's what I'm looking at. Okay, so if this trauma literally changed you, how did it change you? It misled you away from your true nature. Okay. Now, let's define your true nature. Here's how I define it: who you were meant to be when you received the spark of life in your mother's womb. That's when all of your unique gifts and special ways of being were bestowed upon you, but with none of your wounding, none of your trauma, and none of your conditioning, which means familial, cultural, societal. Okay. So, like, just pure you. So, that's who you were meant to be. Now, instead, you began collecting evidence to substantiate the lie, the false narrative, and you began living as if it were true. There
Hmm.
were there were a couple thousand more micro traumas. Literally, we have thousands of these. And then there were some macro traumas, the big mama jammas, that collectively tainted your view of yourself, other people, the world, life more, and push you further away from your true nature. So I guess the bottom line is that before you even knew it, your identity had become wrapped up in your false narrative.
Wow. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The more I look at this, the more I study it, that when we're born, or even before, that's who we are. And I've given that analogy, two babies born at the same time. They're both healthy, different cultures, different languages. They look different. They're the same. It's like a clean slate. It's a fresh start. And who they really, really, really are is who they are at that moment. Who they should be later in life is who they are at that very moment. And then it's almost like a boat in the ocean going, calm seas, all of the, oh boy, here comes a wind, here is a storm, here it's the boat's off course now, and here we are.
Yeah. And just a clarification, like a lot of times there is trauma in the womb. So I would say that you really are the most you're ever going to be when you get the spark of life. And basically it's a little bit downhill from there.
Hey, thanks for the good news.
Yeah, you're welcome. But the really good news in that is that we have more power than we think we have. Our perception and perspective is actually within our control.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean that it's easy, but the truth is that whatever your traumas are that changed you on the surface, these traumas did not change you permanently. That was an illusion. That is your own virtual reality.
The core of who we are individually can never change, right?
Absolutely. It can never change. Who you're really meant to be is always still in there. Okay. And what did change? Your trauma did change your opinion of yourself. which of course affects what you can accomplish in your life. So I'm not saying your trauma didn't change you. It changed your personal narrative. It did not change your true nature.
True nature, that's what I'm referring to, the
Yep.
core. Just the
Yep.
the foundation of each one of us is there. And and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Who you are deep down inside, who you're meant to be, is what I call your true nature. And it
Mm.
never leaves you. We often leave it, but the truth is, it's always calling you back to yourself. And how you know is you get angry, you get sad, you take something personally, you get disappointed. That's how you know. Because
Wow.
the sadness, the anger, the fear, the worry, the disappointment, taking things personally, those are all messages from your true nature that come up to be healed. Their intention is to bring you closer to yourself, not further away. If you buy into them and you stay mad and angry, then you take that boat out to sea and you just go adrift.
That's a such a key point. When we're feeling that way, we're angry, we're off, we're sad, all of that. That is the reason we are, because we're not who we are or should be. And again, back to the boat. I feel if you're piloting, in fairly calm seas and everything is looking good, you're your true core. The other stuff starts, the storm starts, and when the boat is like rocking and it's off kilter and everything, that's you getting angry, getting sad, getting anxiety, all of that, because that's not the way the boat's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, piloting forward with no issues.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
it would be nice if life was easier. It's not. But the thing is, it presents us these challenges, which are actually growth opportunities.
Hmm. So, deep question for just a moment. Growth opportunities. If we are who we are at the core, the foundation, who we're supposed to be, our true purpose, everything, our true nature, why would we want to grow from that when we want to be who we are?
Well, we do want to be our true nature, but honestly, life makes it so hard. We're always being pulled away from it. I say suffering has a gravitational pull. Literally, I think it does. And I think that the addiction of suffering sucks us in, and it's so sincere and legitimate, we don't even notice. So it can be real easy to go off course. And you know, but the thing is, your true nature's always calling you back. It's always trying to course correct,
It's your
trying to help
compass.
support. It is, yes. And the gifting, might get covered up and obscured, but it never goes away. It's always there. So the mistake most of us make is that we buy into the traumas and we let them define us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you are not your wounds. I am not my wounds. Each person is also not their wounds. And if you were to really embrace this and like start looking at your friends, your parents, your children, your siblings, your neighbors, the guy at the grocery store, your your boss, your coworkers, your employees, all those people, your extended family, like they are not their wounds. So when you define yourself by your trauma, you really limit your potential. And when you define other people by their trauma, which we all do, we all see people as their wounding. You define them by their trauma, but
Mm.
they are not their wounds and you are not your wounds. So if we're going to really build the healthy neural pathways to consistently um, get ourselves back so that we can relate to ourselves as our gifting and see the potential in other people, it's going to require something. Like we're going to have to become more willing to see that the messages from our true nature are coming up to be healed.
When you say growth opportunity in this, we're actually saying growing closer or growing closer back to our true nature. It's not like we're growing somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that's the irony, I think. And, this is just so interesting, but we all talk about personal growth and spiritual growth. Well, we had that, we have that, and we just have to get back to it. It's not like it is someplace we want to get to, but guess what? The place we want to get to is right back in here to who we once were, where we had all the connection with whatever your version of God is, and we felt loved and cradled in the womb and safe.
Right back where we started from.
Exactly.
That's where we want to be.
Yeah. That's the best place. It's the safest place, certainly, but it's the best place.
Mm.
And we've got to get back to that. I mean, I do believe personally that like we all get back to our true nature when we take our last breath. Okay. But for me, that's not really good enough because I'd like to get back to it as much as I can sooner rather than later. So, this is the endeavor.
How are we getting this done?
Okay, so let's just do a little recap. Okay, I don't want to be redundant, but I'm going to give an example. Okay, so you gotta figure out how you were changed by your traumas, basically, right? Okay, so let's say your first grade teacher told you that you were stupid in front of the class, or your parents spanked you in front of your friends, something like that when you were young. Okay, inquire within. What repetitive feeling did that initiate? Like, I'm embarrassed. I want to disappear. I'm devastated. I want to be small. I don't trust my teachers and parents. I feel bad about myself. I'm not as good. I'm not, as smart as my friends. I feel lonely, whatever it is. It's different for each person, but whatever it is, this is just from one little thing that somebody said or did. Okay. Not from the big traumas. We're going to micro traumas because I believe that they matter most. So, so we talked about what thoughts it created in you, what feelings did it create in you? Example, um, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. Nobody wants to be my friend. I'm stupid. I'm unlikable. Whatever it is, that those thoughts were able to take root. And from the thoughts and the feelings that took root, then came the behaviors. And so, out of those things, what would some of the natural behaviors come? So, it would be natural for a child like that to begin withdrawing further and further into themselves. Maybe they stopped speaking up. Uh, they probably started shutting down and suppressing their feelings, right? So, the real question is how how did that change you? But how we're going to ask that is what did you make it mean when you got older? So here's an example. You got older. You didn't believe in yourself. You knew you weren't good enough, so you stopped trying. You withdrew into yourself. You became apathetic and complacent. So you didn't, for apathy is you don't care, complacency is you don't try. So you gave up on your dreams and your goals. Your self-trust and your self-esteem were obliterated and you just knew you'd never amount to anything. Okay, this is common. So now that's great and fine and good. What's the real prize here? The real prize is to ask yourself the key. Who would you be if that trauma hadn't happened? This is one of the most important questions you could ever ask yourself in your life. Okay. So you would take inventory of the thoughts, the feelings, and the behaviors that would have been yours. And guess what? That's actually who you are. That's your potential. It's your true nature. So identify your gifts. So I'll just go further into this same example. Um, let's say for this person, they said, okay, well, if that micro trauma hadn't happened, if my mom hadn't spanked me in front of my friends, or if the teacher hadn't told me I was stupid in front of the class, I'd have faith and trust in myself and other people. I would have been able to work towards my goals. I would have been able to make my dreams come true. I would be resilient and expressive as opposed to shutting down, right? I would know how smart I am. I would feel good about myself. I would be able to ask for what I need, share how I feel, set healthy boundaries, and I would have great relationships with lots of love and support in my life. So basically, I would feel fulfilled and satisfied and content, happy.
The way it should be, the way
Yeah,
you were in your mom's womb.
exactly. And that's the way it could be for all of us. Now, remember, I'm never into farting rainbows. Okay. This is a tall order. And I'm not saying that you can move through life with no problems because that would be completely impossible, even if you lived on an island by yourself. However, we can ask ourselves this one question: who would you be if that trauma didn't happen? And you could ask that question of each of the micro traumas that you remember. And most of us do remember these little things that happened that they might nag at us later. You might even not be thinking about them until you start looking back and trying to remember, and then they'll start coming back to you.
And it can be painful. Let's be honest. It's called work for a reason.
Yeah.
But once you start identifying them and putting these pieces together, that's where the change begins. That's where the road back home begins, if you will.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think that for everybody out there, we've all been separated from our true nature, and we all want to get back to it. And it's such a blessing just to be able to do the work to get back to it.
Do you feel that many micro traumas are connected to each other? Where am I going with that? Let's say, your mom spanked you in front of your friends and you got embarrassed. You were 7 years old, but made a mark on you.
Mhm.
Then another situation presented, and another situation, not even involving your mother, could be school, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
but they all point back to a lot of the same feelings that we have from different traumas. They're all feeding each other.
Yeah, they're collectively similar, so
Hmm.
maybe one trauma, somebody makes you feel like you're not smart. Another trauma, and I say somebody makes you feel, it's really not proper wording. The truth is you made yourself feel that way, but we're not going to blame a child for feeling that way. If you're an adult, then nobody's making you feel anyway. You're choosing it yourself. However, and that can also be very hard. But if we're going back to children, let's say you end up feeling like you're not smart enough because of one thing someone said or did, not good enough because of another thing somebody said or did, not beautiful enough or handsome enough or cute enough, whatever it is, not from a family that has, resources. All of these things pile onto one another. And there's one thing happened that laid the foundation for the other things to come in. And if
Mm.
they ever, it's like a void gets created from the wound, and then other things come in to join the void. And before you know it, you've got this pit of despair. And the reprogramming that we've spent so much time talking about, how to build healthy neural pathways, is about alternatively building a pit of happiness by flipping all those things upside down and redoing, just a redo. Oops, I did it again. I'm sorry. Apologize to yourself and flip it. I deserve to feel like I'm smart enough to accomplish my goals. I deserve to believe in myself. I deserve to trust that life is going to support my process of peace, love, healing, whatever it is. So
But the
that we,
reality here is, and you said before, you're an adult, something happens to you. We have freedom of choice. We are now adults. But the challenge here is it ties back to the past. So your boss says something to you, and they could be a jerk or they could be constructive. They could say, yeah, 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 you could have done it a little bit better. You really, that was all right, but we really have a goal here, and I really had expectations on you that we do a little bit better here. Now, as an adult with nothing behind you, you may say to yourself, all right, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll take care of that. In the back of your mind, you might disagree, and whatever. You have a job, and you're going to pilot through. But that could be and probably will be for most of us a trigger back to childhood where you may have heard that, felt that from your parents, your friends, a teacher, whatever it might be. And there's where you get, I guess, stuck.
Absolutely. So you could have, when you were a kid, maybe one of your deepest wounds is that you brought home a B+ on your math test that you were so thrilled about. And one of your parents said, "Why didn't you get an A?" And you took that and it devastated you. And then your boss says, "Yeah, it's good, but it could have been better." And you're devastated. It all goes back to childhood.
Mm. The reverse of that is once you figure this out, I'm going hypothetical. Once you figure this all out, the boss or somebody says something to you, you may just stand up for yourself and say, well, you know what? I appreciate your opinion, but I have to disagree. I put a lot of work into that, and there were other factors involved. You're putting up boundaries, you're standing up for yourself, and on the back end of it, you may be thinking to yourself, boss, you're a jerk. You don't get it. And I'm getting the hell out of here because I deserve better. You're not
Right?
going to, you may or may not say that, but you are thinking that, and you might take the steps to get that done because you feel full on. This is not where I belong. This individual doesn't get it. But you're not going to do that, and because you won't have the strength to do that based on your past.
Um, I could see that that is one possible outcome if you were to really start recovering yourself. The bottom line is you'd handle everything differently. So maybe in that same situation, your boss says to you, "This could have been better." Maybe you aren't defensive at all. And you just say, "Okay, let's sit down. You can tell me how I could have done a better job." Or maybe you could speak
Yeah.
the truth with love and grace and you could authentically say, "Wow, um, that takes me back to when I brought home a B+. Like I thought it was great. And then you can say, let's talk about it. Or maybe you decide that this person is never going to be satisfied. But the real question would be, is it true that your boss is never going to be satisfied? Or was that your mother or your father or
Yep.
your partner? Like, or is that you?
Mm.
Like, I mean, we really need to just look deeply and reevaluate because things, maybe this is the message from today's podcast. I'm just coming to it myself. Things are not as they appear to be.
And how many of us, on the reverse of that, based on our past, the boss says something or somebody says something and you fly off the handle because you're defensive. Why? Because of your past. The microtraumas. You might handle it in a different way. And I'm not suggesting once you figure this all out that you tell your boss off. It's just,
Right.
or anybody, but you have a better view of it. And like you said, you can handle it. You have a better sense of who you are and your worth and what you deserve.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Deep stuff, but this is everything. This is the keys to happiness right here.
It is. I mean, if I really hope that on this podcast that we are able to really help for a lot of people end their suffering or at least greatly minimize it because the truth is that everybody deserves to feel good about themselves
Yep.
and that we're going to always give ourselves the lives that we believe we deserve. So we need to start shifting our belief in our own deservingness and march forward that way.
You help and have today and in these podcasts us have this realization, but you work one on one with people. How do they find you?
Look on my website. It's chrisclearday.com. And I really actually prefer phone calls and text messages over emails. So call me, text me if you need a little help.
Thank you for today. This is every conversation with you is impactful. This one, I don't know why, but it's almost if it's hitting us in the face. Who would you be now if you weren't dealing or hadn't dealt with those things from the past? And it's I already know the answer. And it's not about me. I don't need to share that.
Mhm.
I already know. And I've worked on it, based on your help and then being aware of these micro traumas. But I know, and you can't look back and say, well, life would have been different. We're here now. Got to start figuring it out.
right? Life would have been different is a very disempowering thought because, yeah, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but it wasn't.
Yep.
So instead of wishing that all these things didn't happen to you, all the shitty things, they did happen. Work with them.
Yep.
Use them to your advantage. Um, they are actually opportunities, right? And
Yeah.
if you're going to avoid them, then, you're going to avoid the opportunity to heal.
I feel like the king of analogies today. I was on the boat thing, but now think of it this way. You've got arrows in your legs and you're trying to walk and you're trying to walk the walk of life. Well, this is arming you with a way to pull the arrows out. And now you can. Now you can run.
Yeah. And it's really just one simple question. Who are you if you aren't your wounds?
ChrisClearday.com. Thank you so much for today, as always, and looking forward next time we dig back in.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for your help today.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.